Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Power On Podcast Portable. Hello, I am Sushi B, and with me, as always, is the intergalactic mysterious one known as Murugaru553 or Taylor. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm doing good. How are you doing there, Sushi?
I'm doing much better. Ready to go for this episode, huh? How about you?
I'm curious to see how this pans out.
I think it's going to be a bit of a poop storm.
Everywhere.
Poop's going to hit the fan, maybe. Hopefully not, but this is a very... I don't know where to go with this, but this is going to be an interesting one for sure.
Well, obviously, let's start from telling them what the game is.
Sure, let's start from the top. So the game that I brought up this time, this is actually one of my choices, and it is Dragon Force for the Sega Saturn.
Dun, dun.
And this is a game that I don't know about sort of the fanfare in Japan, but a lot of the fanfare in North America is very high praise for this game. A lot of people seem to really enjoy it. Now, granted, it seems like not that many people have had an opportunity to play it, likely because of limited print numbers. This is a Working Designs game like a Working Designs translation, and they brought it over to North America. And typically speaking, the Working Designs titles often had low print runs. So, but anyways, it does have a lot of fanfare. A lot of people really enjoy the game from all the comments I've seen online and stuff. And so I personally bought this game a long time ago, and I didn't have my Saturn, and I had it actually shipped to me in Canada when I wasn't there. So it took me a long time to get around to playing this game, and finally, 2013, I was able to do it. And some interesting results. How about yourself, Taylor?
I'll be honest, I knew nothing about this game, really, until kind of joining up with the YouTube community there. I had heard some people kind of talk about it. Now, I don't know if it was because they enjoyed the game or partially because they're Working Design fans. I don't quite recall which of the two there, but I did a little bit of reading up on it, and people generally, there's definitely some very just glowing reviews for a lot of the aspects of the game and stuff.
Right.
I was like, okay, and when you brought it up, we kind of kicked the can down the road for a very long time before we finally got to it, but...
Yes, we did.
It was interesting to finally kind of get into it. Actually both really enjoy Strat RPGs from time to time, and it was kind of interesting to play one that, I'll be quite frank, I'm not a big fan of, to an extent. So, woohoo. So, not nearly as long of a journey as you when it comes to finally getting around to play.
The other weird thing, though, is I've actually played the Japanese version of this game a little. I bought this game because I got it for maybe $5 or something at like a little flea market. It was like $5, right? Dragon Force, very hard game to find. Typically goes for pretty high money on eBay still, probably a range of maybe, let's say, average $80 to $100, I think is typically what it goes for. I mean, it sometimes can go down to $50, $60, but usually goes a little higher. So I was like, $5, and I can at least try out the game, see what it's like. And it's very text heavy, so I tried it, and I had to return it. This is just very, very difficult. I didn't feel like going to all that trouble of just finding, an online translation of, or even just following a strategy for the English version online. It's like, I just don't want to go to the trouble. I'd rather just eventually find the game, which I eventually did for a decent price. I paid a lot less than $80, so I was very pleased. Thank you again to that eBay seller. I do not remember the name, but I did buy this game about 6-7 years ago, and it's been sitting in my friend's basement for a long time. Been waiting to be replayed. So, but I was very fortunate to get it for a decent price on eBay, and I don't know. This game brought out so many emotions in me, and I can't even express that on this podcast. I just cannot. I will at least give it that credit that it reminded me sort of playing games a long time ago as a kid, and also just what I love and hate about games in a lot of ways. So I can at least think of Dragon Force in that light, that it showed me the light in a way of just sort of sort of the crossroads that video games came to during that 32-bit and 64-bit era.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I had as much of a range of emotion about it as you did there. I think I was content with it, but then it slowly, for me, the experience kind of dragged itself out and overstayed its welcome. I would say, and which was unfortunate because I honestly it's nowhere near as enjoyable for me as other strat RPGs, particularly like Fire Emblem or hell, even Terroring Saga. But yeah, there's a lot of issues that I have with it, and I think we should kind of delve into those there. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. I think part of the emotion thing for me is just because it took a long time to get around to it, probably the other factor. I mean, I had a range of confusion to glorious, like happiness and content to utter bemusement and vile anger and ultimately in the end though sort of I felt
vindicated.
Not necessarily vindicated, but just sort of like you could see the ship sailing off and you could be pleasantly accepting of that, content with that sort of ending. Yeah. Just being like, okay, that journey thankfully is over, but it was a journey. And that's what I mean by saying like this game will stay in my mind for at least some time, whereas a lot of games I have played, yes, I'm like, I like this game. I don't like this game. This game brought out so many things in my mind emotionally that I was just like, man, I'm not going to forget Dragon Force for a while, at least because of all of those things. Mm-hmm. But why don't we get into some of the negatives? I think we should get them off our chest right away. Just whatever irked you about this game, let's get it all out right now. And then let's talk about sort of what really works with the game and maybe perhaps sort of judge it from the final point of view of a positive spin at the end.
Okay.
So I will lay the carpet out for you,
all right,
my dear friends. So,
this is one thing that really they had to do it, I guess, kind of for how the game is presented. But something I really did not enjoy about Dragon Force was the fact that it took place on this one continent, the whole game.
Okay.
So you're staring at this map the whole time.
Right.
And it's supposed to kind of be in a way, a real-time strat, pseudo-real-time strat, but your characters move ungodly slow.
Right.
And there are certain points in the game where you have to have certain characters go to certain areas that are strewn across the continent. Yes. And it takes forever. So that to me is at first it's not so bad. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just after a while you're just kind of like, oh, okay, it would be nice and nifty to see something a little different, but you're kind of stuck doing this the whole time. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's too bad you can't really pick up the speed in the game. I've seen other games that do this similar sort of strategy system where, you have a character that can move across the screen. I think the Ogre Battle series does something very similar where they're just kind of moving and then they go to this place, then they get into a battle, and that's how it goes from there and there. It's not in a grid or anything like a lot of other strategy RPGs are. And so, yeah, that's painful a lot of the time. And unfortunately, aside from points that move the story forward, when you do get a piece of story that looks like it could be important and you get maybe a new character out of it, mm-hmm. You're thinking, oh, if I don't go to this place, the story won't carry forward. But some of that stuff is just not important at all. It's side quest, but you don't know that because you think, oh, well, yes, maybe this leads to another event that happens down the line. Basically, if it doesn't involve one of the main characters in this game, unless you're absolutely determined to do everything, which is still pretty hard to do, it's not even worth doing.
Nope.
That's what it comes down to. It just drags out the game a lot.
Indeedy.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think about the length of the game? I kind of tallied it myself because there isn't a counter. I finished with about 25 hours.
I did not keep track. There was
Okay.
I'm pretty bad with I'm kind of one of those people that'll have the game running but then go do something else. So
Right,
I'll
right.
tally up time. It may say that I played a game for 80 hours in total, but I probably only put in like 60 or
Mm.
less even, just because I'll do something else, or I'll be like, oh, just set this over here. I gotta do, guess have ADD when it comes to gaming sometimes.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't love this game because there's plenty of moments you could just do that and have things happening, and you could have walked away and come back and, oh, I guess I have to do a battle now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I don't. It's not that I didn't mind that aspect. It's just I just don't keep track of the time that way. The pacing of do you more so mean like the pacing of the game, story,
I
or?
I was thinking well, I guess you can encompass that if you'd like. I was just thinking more like how long did it roughly take you to play the game? I mean, because you can sort of, if you negate those side quests, you can probably do this game 15, 20 hours at the most.
Yeah.
Maybe less even.
I would say probably with all of my like doing other things kind of thing, I probably put in about 30 to 35 hours, just because I get caught up in, oh, I gotta type out something, or oh,
Right.
I'm gonna go start cooking something, and then kind of
Right.
maybe pick something and then go back to cooking or something. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like, though, you feel that the game is drawn out a little too long.
I think part of it is just because you're constantly looking at that one continent. Plus, there
Right.
are some new, like there are points in the game where you have to be doing certain things, and if you don't trigger these certain events, you kind of have to fumble around until you figure out how to trigger them, kind of thing. And
Mm.
that in itself is
Drags it out.
drags it out and can be kind of irritating.
Yeah, I agree. I think my experience with the game when it came to the time frame of it all, the game starts out pretty confusing. Even if you have the instruction manual, you're probably going to need an hour or two to really figure out what is going on.
Right.
It's not very easy to just pick up this game and start playing. So that's part of the problem as to why it gets dragged out, though, too, is later on, as you said, you have to trigger those events. You get so used to doing things a certain way because it seems like the game wants you to do them that way, and then suddenly they just pull the switch on you and you have no idea what to do next, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, and that to me is a bit of a cardinal sin when it comes to gaming, is that you have something that they tell you, this is, okay, you have, what, 7 other generals that you're trying to take down?
Right.
And so you basically just take over their castles, and then finally you beat the last one, and you kind of take them in, and they're like, oh, I'll join you. However, when you get through all of them but the last one, you have to do something entirely different. And
Right.
that's to me is a little, that's,
Broken.
well, it's not even just that, it's just dickish to do that kind of thing. It's like, oh, well,
Right.
you've been doing it this way. Now, for no reason, we're going to do it completely different. And it's just, I don't like that. That was kind of the first little dig in that kind of really started to pave me off about the game, is that you have,
Right.
that's not a good way to go about it. I mean,
No.
unless it's, unless they led up to it somehow. But they
Right, which they don't, as you said. It's so silly that and this is the problem too, is you really get into the game. I know I was really digging the idea of taking down these kingdoms, and then they join you, and I was like, oh, this is really awesome. I'm really enjoying this strategy aspect of the game. I don't know if you felt the same, but I was having a really good time with it until, well, two things, that point and something happened as well. And I think since we are doing this podcast, I'm pretty sure people should be expecting some spoilers by this point, with the portable episodes. But there's two things that happen. One, a fucking UFO enters this game. A fucking UFO. I am not kidding. This entire game is completely magic and fantasy, and suddenly an earthquake happens, and you're like, okay, that means bad stuff's going to go down. This main villain, he's going to come out and start beating me down. Nothing happens. Suddenly a second earthquake. You're like, okay, this must be, because you don't know how the game is flowing. You're thinking like, oh, maybe suddenly they're trying to push you forward. Like you have to start going faster, otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. That's what I thought. and then a UFO shows up.
An unbeatable UFO.
An unbeatable UFO shows up, and you're like, I don't get too mad, and I usually don't throw my controller, and I wasn't quite to the point of throwing my controller, but I was cussing a lot after that happened.
It's
not only because it was unbeatable, but just because it is so ridiculously out of the blue. And you mentioned, oh well, later on they explain it. They don't explain nothing.
They explain
They're just
it
like
a little bit, but it's still it's
so
dumb.
lame.
Dumb.
It's just
it's very dumb.
Why? Like they could have explained it in another way, saying, well, you know, we have this magic ability that can control metallic objects to come together and form, like, you know, a spirit inside this robot type creature or something. But no, it's a UFO that comes out of space, and you have to fight it, and it's just like.
It's so dumb.
He may, you know, from thousands of years ago, Destiny has declared you will fight a UFO. I was like, what? That was dumb. And then, yes, the battle is with one of the particular kingdom rulers, who is Goldark, or I'm not sure what the Japanese name is.
It's pretty similar there.
But, I mean, this guy, you're like, okay, he kind of torments the other kingdoms throughout most of the game, because I don't know about you, but I left him for last because I thought he looked like he was going to be pretty tough. Mm. Now, I don't know. It sounded like you left him for last too. Perhaps other kingdoms might have the same thing. I wonder if you take him down early on, or if you can, does another kingdom just follow the same suit, where instead of when you beat him, he doesn't just join you, he runs away, and then you have to fight him again.
Dive.
I wonder if another kingdom does the same.
I kind of doubt it. I think that role of dickery is reserved for that asshole.
It's frustrating because once you get him on your team, he's pretty good. He's a good fighter.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, you know, what?
But you hate him. Like, I was just like, I hate this guy. I don't even want to use him.
Yeah.
I don't care how good he is. I'm just like, he's a dick.
It's just, it peeved me off that they did that. And it's just like, why?
Right.
Yeah, and then, you know, odds are you probably embarrassingly lose the 1v1 just because he is pretty damn strong. And
I did. I lost the first time.
Oh, I did too, because my character wasn't ready for it. It was just kind of like, oh, wow.
You're like, oh, okay, well, maybe you're thinking, like, okay, if they're going to go to this trouble, well, at least I can probably win this, right?
Nope.
That's what I was thinking, but nope, he destroys you pretty good.
He got me good, and then you have to fight him again, and then that time, it's like, oh, you finally have units to control, and then destroyed him that way. But it's...
Right. It's just silly. They should have just kept the same momentum of, okay, you beat this guy, you beat this female ruler, they join you, they not really see the error of their ways, but they see that, oh, you guys are part of a bigger grand scheme of the world here. And it's just like, why? Why did they have to go to that trouble?
Yeah, they could have at least kind of stretched out the dialogue.
Right, and he torments you, too. That's the other thing is, if you don't have your leader near him to fight right away, he starts chasing off all your generals.
And you can't even, like, fight him.
Do anything. Yeah, you can't do anything.
It's just like, oh, I win. It's like, what the... Dude, what?
You could be on the other side of the continent, and he could be just going to every single kingdom that you have taken over, and he's just chasing all the generals away.
Yep.
And then you're forced to set them all up again, and it's really dumb.
Oh, it's aggravating.
The UFO does the same thing.
Yes, it does. But at least the UFO kind of just stays in one area, so...
Typically it does, but...
It starts kind of moving towards the area.
Once it starts moving, then you start getting a little agitated.
I just kind of made my characters flee. But sure, you still had one, like, that had to stay at the castle kind of thing.
No, I actually took everyone away just in case.
But you have to leave somebody in the castle.
You know, I remember reading that there were some differences between the two versions, that the Japanese version was actually a little bit harder.
Oh.
In the North American version, you can expel all generals from the castle.
Jesus,
you can just
that would have saved me like 10 hours right there, man.
Yeah, you can just actually get all the generals to just up and leave and abandon the castle.
Totally did not happen. I had to...
So they probably did that to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, because it was a pain in the ass having to leave somebody there and then... Oh, you gotta fight, and then just, nope, fuck you, run away.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I could have done that because they usually had some general that only had 10 units to his name or something.
And that's another thing. Speaking of generals there are way too many. There's like 130. It's
something like that. And there's secret ones, and then there's just main ones.
And it's a burden.
There's a lot.
Because you get these guys eventually, and sure, at first it's manageable and stuff, and when you're done with your turn, you can, like, certain ones that have a high enough intelligence, they can either build onto the castle or the fort to make it stronger and stuff.
Fortifications.
Right, the sort of fortifications and stuff, like make it stronger to make it bigger, so you can recruit more units and stuff and bring them in, so you can have soldiers if your units are depleted, and or you can also search for items and stuff.
Right.
But it's so, like, I wish they would have just had a everyone just do this kind of thing, because it takes forever once you start getting into like the 80s and 90s of the generals and stuff, because there's just so many of these units that have enough intelligence for it, and so you're just like, okay, all right, okay,
search,
and, you know, 9 times out
and you're stuck going through all the text as well. You can't speed through it. You can push the button to move it along, but you can't just sort of ignore it, which is a little unfortunate. I think that they might have been taking a page a bit away from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms series does that too, where you take over cities and stuff, and then you get certain people are only fighters and certain people are only sort of civil servants. Right. And so they probably, maybe the producer really liked that concept and thought that was really cool. I like it to a point, as you said. If they could have sort of cut down some of the generals, at least, if they didn't streamline it, at least cut out a handful of them, I think that would have been nicer. I think another thing that could have helped balance it is if you could have killed more generals. Just not many generals get killed in battle, right? Pretty much all of them stay alive. They just get captured. Right. And at first, as you said, it's fine because you need the generals. You're at the start of the game. You start getting your forces and you get really excited. Yes, this is awesome. I'm starting to get these generals. I can start taking over these other kingdoms. But as it keeps going on and you're getting general after general, it's so hard to manage after a while. I was still doing it, but you could probably take 4 or 5 hours easily out of the game just by, as you said, condensing either the number of generals or the ability to just say, all the generals in this place are going to search, all the generals in this place are going to fortify, or all of them are just going to stand by. Mm-hmm. And it's too bad that some of the generals can't do any of that stuff. Certain generals can do civil acts, but the other ones can't, so they're just kind of there. Right. Which is probably a bit lucky, too, because then you don't get to the point of where you're meticulously working with every single general, but still, then you have to start sending certain generals to certain cities because the city's at the front line, it needs more soldiers, and that becomes a whole nother ballgame.
And, of course, you have generals that defect, which is always a pain.
Yeah, I don't know about the Japanese version. There weren't too many that do. I like when they defect because then I just beat the crap out of them the second time. There's 2 guys in particular that kept, or no, 3. One is like Hilkis or something. It's like a silver-haired ponytail knight.
Yeah, he did that.
That guy, Rock likes to leave.
There's one of the Beast ladies.
There's the Beast lady, Sylvia or something.
She just kind of kept on leaving. And I was like, you know what?
Right. I don't even bother to find them again.
When I do them, they stay they're locked away. I never.
Oh, you don't even bother to.
Don't even bother to bring them back.
Yeah, that's another thing is once you do get some of the generals and capture them, you're able to speak with them, and sometimes they'll join you. But at the end, I had one guy. I think that there's always, I think I read, one general that will just completely refuse and never join.
I had that.
It doesn't matter which main sort of ruler you choose. It doesn't matter. There's always one general that just completely refuses to join, which is ridiculous because after you take over this entire continent, there's nowhere for this person to go. Nope. And they're still like, I'll rather rot in prison than join you. And you're like, I've already recruited that ruler that you were under. What? Like, what are you doing, man?
I don't. It's in one hand,
it's funny.
I like it actually because it kind of gives it a little more character to that kind of general. And you're just like, oh well, this dude's a stubborn prick, but
they're pointless guys that you don't even need anyway.
Well, right, so. But I mean, it's still there's at least some variance to it. It's not just like, oh, you got my leader. I might as well just.
Well, that's true to a point. Since there's only one general that does it,
well,
I can't really argue that case that hardly when I literally had one guy in jail that wouldn't come out, and I had recruited everybody else. I don't think you can really argue that. That it's that.
But he's a stubborn prick, I guess. I don't know.
Well, then I should have been able to execute him or something.
Oh, goodness.
Or, put him on a ship and sent him off on his way, something like that. But, yeah, I mean, any other sort of areas you want to cover that were sort of nagging?
I felt the music sucked overall.
Yeah, it's pretty plain. I mean, I think it doesn't help that depending on what your battle style is, you'll probably hear the same song over and over again.
Right.
I typically waited for generals to come to attack me, and then I would just counterattack because they were dumb. They would constantly send generals that were clearly weaker than my guys to my castles, and I was like, okay. And then I'd wait for them, and you already have defensive fortification by being in your base.
Right.
And then you just crush them, and then you just chase them down, and then take over their castles. So I heard the one castle theme over and over and over again.
Yeah, like there's, I think I can recall like one good song, just.
I don't mind the overworld song. It's okay.
It kind of ragged on me a little bit. Nah, the fight with the UFO, that fight, that's got a really.
That's a neat song. Yeah. That's also. I think they repeat that song near the end of the game as well. So a couple of times. It's sort of like the main evil music for the main villains there.
It's a good song. I enjoyed it. So.
It's all right. I like some of the cutscene music is okay too. It's not horrible.
But overall, it was very kind of underwhelming. There's nothing, and it's one of those things that I think what helps Strat games is to have a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like music of grandeur and kind of this, and it doesn't have that for the most part.
It kind of doesn't. No. Again, it's not the worst produced music or anything, but it's definitely very generic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that point for sure.
So, yeah, that was one. That's some very good points to bring up. What anything else?
No, I think we've kind of definitely gone through sort of the negatives, and this is the thing that was really surprising to me. After seeing such positive reviews about the game, I never really saw people comment on these things, and I don't know, are they just wearing rose-colored glasses? Are these reviews from 1996? Like, are they? Because the game came out in 1996. So I can't imagine that many of those reviews have come recently. I mean, there's probably the odd person that maybe played it back in the day that still loves it today and made a review recently, but somebody to pick it up right now, today, for the first time, I think would have a lot of trouble with this game. In more ways than one. I think that they would probably find a lot of the things that we thought were very frustrating to be the case for them as well. I'd be surprised if somebody just said, this game is awesome and perfect and there's nothing wrong with it. But that's what most of the reviews of the game kind of show off. They're like, well, there's nothing wrong with this game. I'm like, there's plenty wrong with this game, actually.
A weak story.
Yeah, the story. Then again, you're playing a strategy RPG, as the saying goes. I'm not too concerned about the story. Like I am, but I'm not. Like, I know you'll argue, well, Fire Emblem and stuff, but I honestly don't play Fire Emblem for the story. I could care less about the story. I just like the battle system and the music. That's sort of my deal when it comes to strategy RPG.
I guess if there's not even really there's not any like major, or at least majorly interesting plot twists. I can roll out with one there's a huge plot twist in Seisa no Keifu, which is one of the Fire Emblem games on the Super Famicom. Huge plot twist. It's just like, holy shit kind of thing. And that's a pretty high bar for it. But, in Dragon Force, there is a couple, but they're kind of dumb. AKA UFO, AKA Goldark's.
UFO is pretty damn dumb. Those two are kind of dumb.
Goldark's brother, kind of.
There's one with one of the main rulers that I wasn't so overjoyed by it, but I was like, oh, well, that's all right. That doesn't bother me. That's kind of different, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you were kind of like, yeah.
It's not.
Like, it could have been worse. I mean, it could have turned out to be Cthulhu or something like.
Oh, no,
at the rate it was starting to go.
I didn't mind that so much, but it wasn't. It didn't. I guess if you played that storyline, because that's, I guess, something we should bring up, is that you can play through all these different kingdoms.
Right, from the start.
Well, except for one,
awesome.
because one you have to unlock after playing it through, I think.
But it's still pretty awesome. I like that idea a lot. I thought that was really cool.
It's cool, yeah. I don't mind it, but I think this kind of goes into it's hard to build a very strong narrative, especially with some of them, because some of them probably the one we probably picked the same one. We didn't tell each other which one we picked.
No, we have not. So we could reveal that right
now. Yeah, which we probably picked the same one, knowing how we are. But do you want me to say who?
Yeah, go ahead.
I picked the Kingdom of Izumo.
So did I. I picked Mikau. And I don't know why, because I looked at the map and I was like, that's a kind of terrible location to start from. It's not a particularly good location. And I was like, it looks like you got to fight on at least 2 fronts. I was like, let's give this a shot.
Yeah, I actually flipped a coin. I was going to either pick that one or the Dark Knights.
Okay.
But it came to that one, so...
Junon, Tristan?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
which is a good one, actually, because that's nice and sort of in the pocket, right? You got to fight your way out. The other kingdom, Ren's, is like that as well. Right. Was it Highland?
I think yeah, it's the Highland.
So and he's sort of in that perfect spot. Those are sort of, if you were a beginner of the game, which we were as well, typically that's what I would go for. Like, okay, well, that should be kind of easy to work my way out. So I don't know why I picked Mikhail. I was just like, let's try this guy. Let's see. He looks interesting, and he's kind of cool looking. I mean, he's sort of your typical samurai, but he's got some good generals. And I had tried this game prior to us doing this, prepare for this episode. I had tried the game maybe about 2-3 months before, and I tried Wen, and I was like, this game is interesting. It's a little hard, but I was like, I'm going to come back to this. I want to sort of chew on it, and then. Well, story goes, and we go back to the portables. So it's like, let's give this guy a shot instead. I didn't want to sort of stick with the same one. I wanted to try something different. So we both picked the same kingdom, which is interesting. Kind of fortunate as well. The particular soldiers that this guy has actually are very important near the end of the game.
Yeah, they make things a lot easier.
I don't know if that will change at all, but I doubt it. When it comes to having another general, like meaning would you have the same advantage of having other soldiers? I doubt it. I think this guy's main soldiers are probably the best soldiers to have as one of the rulers.
Yeah, especially for the end game. I mean, yeah, you can add. There's these medals that you can find and stuff that'll allow you to, because each general only can have certain kind of troops, because there's 10 different kind of troops? There's,
Yeah, there's quite a few different troops. So, got main soldiers.
Horsemen.
Cavalry.
The cavalry.
Mages.
Right. Archers.
Samurais, archers.
Beastmen.
Monks.
He said
Beastmen. Harpies.
Dragons.
Zombies and dragons.
Yeah, there's... And you can have up to a maximum of 100 of these dudes. Or dudettes.
Which is pretty damn impressive for the Saturn and back in the day. And the other thing is, this game runs pretty smooth. I didn't have very often where something was chugging along. Right. I was surprised that you could have 200 soldiers going at each other, plus the 2 generals, and there's not too much slowdown going on. It runs really well.
It's rather impressive with that. And, you can have a bunch of different selections on how you want to kind of send out your troops. You can have them in offensive positions or kind of in attack formations and stuff. And you have to some extent, there is a little bit of strategy, but eventually it kind of boils down to, once you know what works, you just kind of rinse and repeat with that.
Right.
So, I mean...
Right. And that's really cool, though. I like that. But generally speaking, it's kind of silly, though, and that's... I would say about 80 to 90% of the time, you can pretty much stay in a defensive standby mode and just let the other army run at you, and you're going to decimate them. There are the few times where some of the mages and stuff, some of the mage-type generals, they'll stay back and they'll hold their troops back because they can shoot from afar. But typically, if you choose someone like, say, the Beastmen or the cavalry can just literally walk around the archers and the mages, and then once they're inside, that's it. They just get destroyed.
Right.
It is really cool. There are lots of different strategic abilities in this game. And on top of that, also, your generals have some magic spells that they can do that could be effective against the other general. They can be effective against all of the soldiers, or they can be effective against both.
Right, and some of them can be incredibly just... There's like the one... There's if they try to like rush your general, you can have some pretty damning moves waiting for him.
Oh, that one power wave move that has this sort of 5-line
yeah, and that'll just
beam thing that just absolutely destroys. They could have an army of 100. You can knock them down to 40 or something. Like, you can just absolutely destroy these guys.
Right. Yeah, and even if they're not charging at you, you can still take out a good chunk of them if they're waiting in a defensive formation. So.
Right. Unfortunately, the magicians and the spirit users and stuff, they kind of stink. Like, even when you do have soldiers coming at you and stuff, they're not very good at using their magic. It always seems to take out a few or just completely miss. Or
yeah, they're kind of crummy with that.
Yeah, there's one move that they have, though, that's this sort of defensive spell that's really good, but that only works if you're surrounded. But if you can get that one off, that can take out like 50 soldiers.
Oh,
easily.
Kind of the ground one that not keeps them...
There's a ground guardian spell that like holds them on the ground, but there's that other one where it's like these two balls of light.
Oh, the fairy
That one drove me
protector?
nuts a few times. Like, I'd be completely surrounded a particular general, and then they would just decimate my
Yeah,
soldiers.
because that one, I seriously went from like 80 down to 16 one time.
Oh, yeah,
You're just like,
was damning.
fuck you, dude, you stupid. And that's an interesting thing about it is that you have, what is it, a minute? Or no, 90 seconds?
90 seconds.
Yeah, 90 seconds. The battles are really, they're too far spaced apart from each other, so it kind of drags on. But if each of the general's armies go down to 0, you basically have this 1v1 crapshoot, as I say, because they just pretty much beat on each other until somebody loses. And I don't mind it, but in the same hand, it's kind of sporadic, because there'll be times where I'll be in the favor of it, but I'll miss 2 or 3 times in a row, and then the other one will get this 3-hit combo thing, and you're just like, what? Why? What? How did that? What? And it's
right, and that's really frustrating because you don't have any control over it. It's fine if there's no control over it if you're going back and forth, but the fact that they added that little combo thing in, sometimes it works to your favor, but there's been a handful of times where I've lost a battle because they'll just bust out this 5-hit move on you, and you're like, well, I had full health. They are down to like this little red zone, which means they're almost going to die. And then you lose, and you're like, well, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's a bit random in that. And I don't know, having a random element is all right, but if there's nothing to really define what this random element is, I mean, if there's nothing to say there's an X amount of chance of this happening, it doesn't... because it doesn't seem like there is. It just seems to just happen. It doesn't... I don't know what the parameters are for it, but it just... It's like, okay, all right, cool, sweet.
Right. It's just a little frustrating because it's never usually life-threatening in the game, and you just kind of maybe lose a nonchalant general. You don't usually lose someone very important until maybe near the end of the game.
Right.
But it's a little frustrating that it's sort of in there. Some of the faster soldiers, like ninjas, seem to get lots of attacks in like that.
Yeah.
But it's not too game-breaking, I guess. But I would have liked to see them sort of tighten it up. Or at least if they wanted to do that, maybe they could have had you have full control of your general then. Mm. That would have been maybe a little way to sort of negate that.
All right.
What would have been really cool there is if they went in sort of a traditional RPG mode of having, like, if you want to cast a spell still or attack or defend. That would have been really neat.
Or kind of just basically gank how Suikoden did it, because Genzo Suikoden has that kind of rock, scissors, paper aspect of it, which is pretty freaking cool for it. So,
yeah.
I mean...
But the rest of the battles themselves are pretty cool. Like, it's just too bad that part sort of waters it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're cool, but they feel a little repetitive just because, like I said, once you figure out how to deal with certain unit types, it's pretty much just do that and you're fine kind of thing, which...
Right. I don't mind it, though, because I was still getting excited because I was still being able to take over the other kingdoms. Once you get to the point where you've taken over the map, then you're sort of really like, well, I'm not really fighting for much anymore,
Right.
is how I felt. So yeah.
So,
But,
what, any other good points you want to bring up?
Personally, I thought the sprites in the game looked really cool, too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they weren't necessarily completely varied, but they looked really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, as I already mentioned about the battles, it looks neat to see the two armies sometimes rushing at each other and they're shouting, and it's pretty neat. I think as a whole, for a game that doesn't allow a lot of control, I did enjoy the battles still, which surprised me because I was thinking at first, man, this is going to get really dumb after a while. And it does at points where you're kind of getting to the point of, Well, I think if you take a break from the game, even for a day or two, you're kind of come back to it and you're like, oh, okay. But I think if you keep pressing on and on and on, you're going to get really bored of this game. Which I know you did, actually.
Yeah, so. I just wanted to get it done. I liked it up to probably about, it started getting old for me when I was getting towards the tail end of beating all of the generals. And I was just like, I was enjoying it, but then it was kind of like, okay, this is, and then you're kind of going all over the continent trying to plug in the 8 special generals in certain ways and stuff, and having to find Goldark and getting him to do his thing with
Ren?
Yeah. Actually, that wasn't too bad. It was just a dumb plot point in there.
Yeah, that was just dumb. I can agree that I think that going to those temples and stuff is fine. That doesn't really bother me, but late in the game, you also start getting random attacks across the map, which is really annoying,
right.
But lucky for me, I had my generals already near the castle that they needed to be, so I was able to sort of quickly get past that.
Right.
But I could see, I don't know how long they could go for, but I could see that being brutal. If you were across the map for some reason with your main general, plus the other generals also have to be in the same castle.
Oh, yeah, because
that's brutal.
Because we had the same one. We had to go from getting Goldark all the way to the other end of the continent. That takes forever.
No, actually, I didn't have to do that. I got lucky. He was near that castle. He didn't go all the way to the other side.
What?
Not on my game. I think he randomly moves across the map. That's the other thing that's annoying about it is you might just get lucky like I did. And I was maybe 4 castles away. Mm-hmm. From there, I didn't have to go across the map. I was across the map because I went to do one of the side quests with the vampire guy.
Oh,
thinking, this sounds important. Because you go to one temple and there's like a ghost guy who seems like he's going to be extremely important in the game. And he sort of is, but then his story is just kind of silly. It's just, I don't know. But that deals with the whole UFO issue again. So. That UFO made me really mad. You know how mad I was at UFO. I was fuming. That's what I mean when I had such a emotional dive on this game. It was ups and downs and large peaks and valleys. So, but before sounds like we're almost ready to wrap it up here. Yeah. Why don't we play 10 Degrees of Taylor, where we sort of give our final thoughts. So the 10 Degrees of Taylor today is going to be nothing special. We're just going to go with the 8 generals. I didn't really find anything personally that I thought we could really sort of, hinge on. There's not too much story and such. So,
or at least through McCall's side of things.
Right. But I still presume most of the story follows a very similar path throughout the game. I presumed. But anyway, so we're going to just look at the generals, the main 8 generals, and sort of we'll rate them on a score of 1 to 10. Well, let's say 0 to 10.
Okay.
Based on, let's say, the look of the character for one. So like the design of the character, the usefulness of the character, and sort of the what they bring to the table in the game. And what I mean by that is what soldiers do they bring, and what sort of tools or special attacks do they bring that either made the game easier for you or more difficult?
Okay.
All right, so those sort of parameters.
All right.
Now we'll start with the main guy here, and that's he's sort of, I guess, at least presumed to be the main hero, and that is Ren.
He was all right. He was pretty average for me. I didn't. He wasn't terrible for me, but he wasn't a cut above the rest kind of thing.
Right.
His design's all right, which I think I had him using soldiers. I think maybe.
Okay, he starts with soldiers.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I had him using soldiers, and I just kind of kept it with that, to be honest. And he pulled through when I needed him to, and so yeah, I throw him a 7.
Nice, yeah. A pretty decent design actually for the main hero guy. I kind of like that he's all white. I think that's kind of neat. And he's got like this kind of cool bird sort of shield thing on his shoulder and stuff. And yeah, I mean he's pretty useful. He's got some good attacks. He's got the big laser beam thing we talked about, the laser shot thing there. So I'd probably give him about a 7.5 as well. So just a little higher than me. All right, well let's move on to this jerk, and that is Goldar.
He's an ass, but he's pretty awesome with his.
Once you get him on your side.
Well, yeah, once you have him on your side, I actually
for a whole hour of the game or something.
I actually changed
a little longer, but
changed his units to I gave him dragon units, and
oh god, well dragons in this game, we haven't quite touched upon that, but dragons are almost impossible to stop.
They're pretty darn good, and him controlling dragon units was a pretty formidable pairing there. So I just had him pretty much spanking the pants off of anybody he came across. So
right. He starts with the cavalry, which are still pretty good for him, though.
Right. Oh yeah. But I was like, might as well throw him some dragons and.
Yeah, I mean, he's a beast.
He was pretty beastly, and his design to me is a little. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. It's a little goofy to me, but he rocked it when he needed to. So I give him like a 9.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
8.59. Yeah.
8.59. All right. One thing that this game actually seems like they really like shoulder pads in this game. Like, have you noticed if they don't have shoulder pads, they've got like these capes that are floating above them, almost like shoulder pads.
Like a mantle.
It's really weird. It doesn't look bad. It just looks really bizarre in a lot of cases. Yeah, this guy, he's pretty good. He pissed me off pretty much the whole game though, so I'm dropping his score down. Even though he saved my ass at the end of the game, I also gave him dragons. I'm only going to give him 7.5. He's an awesome fighter. He's probably, if not the best, when it actually comes to the fighting. But I was too mad at him from all the other crap that happened in the game. All right, so let's move on there. Let's move to Terrace, who is the Pale Moon Kingdom ruler. She's a magic user and has blue hair. And predominantly blue color.
I didn't mind her design, but she kind of reminds me of I can't remember her name. One of the characters from Star Ocean 2, in a way, just because she has that.
Reyna?
Yeah. No, not Reyna. The magician. So what's her name? I can't remember.
With the pointed hat.
Yeah.
And her colors are kind of purple and gold and white.
Right.
I know who you're talking about. I don't remember the character.
They kind of have that like curtain looking thing.
Kind of. You could probably argue that this girl looks like Reyna and her kind of put together a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But I don't know. She sucked for me. She was so.
I absolutely. She, in the final battle and every other battle, she is garbage. She can't do anything. She has decent units. She has archers, but she is so useless, and her magic misses all the time.
So not.
And once she's one-on-one, she is done fast. She has no defense.
Right. So she pretty much rode Pine for the most part because she was. I tried to build up her levels, and it was an aggravating experience to do that.
Yeah. The other thing is she's one of the characters that actually has the ability to do the civil work, and she fails
all the time.
Somehow she would get 10-20% of the time she would actually do the job right. And every time she'd fail. I'm like, why is she one of the rulers? She's not really good at doing anything. At least they could have made her, at the very least, they could have made her like a good civil worker where she would find lots of good items with the search command.
Competent at something. So what else?
Move on to Kyle. What about Mikhail?
Kyle, he's pretty rockin'. It's not. I don't think his design's that great, but I thought he's pretty rockin'. But I think what kind of helps him is that he has the samurai kind of units that pretty much help the end of game go a lot smoother.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was just pure dumb luck, sort of, in that regard. Just really lucky that his units are predominantly samurai. Mm. And he's really good. I don't mind the design. I like the color scheme, though. It's a little different. Little different.
But yeah, I didn't give one for the Terrace, yeah, but she gets like a 3-4. Mikhail, he gets. I'd put him a good deal, a little bit above Ren there, like an 8 or so.
That's probably what I'd go for too. One of his second in command generals, Zagat, is really good.
Yeah,
too. He's almost better than him in a lot of the battles, especially early on.
So the next one.
All right. So the next one, Gongos. Gongos is a sort of like Beastman type guy. He's okay.
He sucked for me early on. Like I got him. He was actually the first kingdom I took over, and he sucked for me early on. And as just eventually, because what you can do is equip items onto the characters, just like one item to either boost their strength or something. And I got this bitchin' axe that I found, and I equipped that on him, and he murdered people after that. So for me, he turned out pretty cool. His design's not like terrible. It's not bad. I actually kind of like his sprite a little bit there. I thought it was a cool sprite. I'd put him at he's definitely saved my ass at the end. But I'd probably give him 7.5, 8.
Nice. Yeah, I think he's a little weaker at the start for sure, but I think he might have been the first general I took down as well, the first main ruler. Mm-hmm. But as the game goes on, you start to find that he's actually really useful. And but you got to keep using him. That's the thing. I used him a lot at the start when I got him, and he started getting better and better and better. But as I started getting too many generals to manage, he kind of fell by the wayside a little. Mm-hmm. But his units are the beast men type guys. Right. And sometimes they're really hit or miss. They can get decimated sometimes. But sometimes they are awesome as well. Sometimes once they get inside on somebody, they're so fast and they can just do some massive damage. Yeah. So he's really hit or miss. So are his units. But I do like a lot of the generals that come along with him as well. They're pretty good. All right. So moving on. I guess I didn't give him a score. I'll give him a 7. He's pretty good. All right. Now we go for the big burly manly man in Leon of the Topaz Kingdom.
Wait. Leon of the... Is that... Wait.
He's the guy, the monks.
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking of the... What is his name? Like, Frederick or... okay. Anywho. Of the monks... I'm trying to think. Because that was actually... I held off on them until near the end to get to Goldark. So...
Oh yeah, I did too.
but he kind of like he was a pushover really to get, just because him and Goldark had been butting heads so much that it was pretty easy to get. Yep. I honestly did not use him that much, but when I did, he was pretty good. But I just didn't use. Obviously, I just didn't really use him that much. It's just kind of just for whatever reason, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, you're there, cool, thanks. So
thanks for the backup.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know.
Yeah, but he's good in the last battle. He sort of holds the fort of his side of the team there.
Right.
Like he's got a good partner, but you kind of need this guy to sort of finish it off. Without him, you definitely wouldn't finish off that sort of section easily.
Right.
So he's okay. I used him a few times. I think his specials are not that great. He's got that weird charge thing that goes across the screen and stuff, but one-on-one, he's pretty good.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. He's a bit. I'd probably give him just like a 6. Maybe.
Yeah, he's pretty standard, and that's probably what I'd give him. I guess 6.5, just for the cut body. He's got like, I don't know if you've seen the art for him, but he's just like got abs upon abs and muscles, and he's got like 2 sets of breasts basically because he's got so many muscles. He's just
rocking that Adonis belt.
He's got like this. Well, yeah, he's got this open. Again, with the big shoulder pad thing and this huge collar, but then he's just
right,
because
he's got that.
His chest is just sick.
Because he's got that like kind of
furry, feather boa thing.
Yeah, he's kind of butt heads with Ren a little bit. It seems
a little bit. Kind of with everybody a little bit actually.
He's a bit full of himself.
Yeah, he's a little egotistical.
Guess,
obviously, you'd be walking around with your shirt off, open like that too. I guess if you look like that. So. But no, he's okay. He's just a little above average.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we just got the 2 left here, and we got I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but the Tradnor Kingdom, which is Reinhardt.
That's who I was thinking of. The mages.
Sort of priest type looking guy, mage.
He, for me, up until the end, like the last battle kind of thing, up until the very end. He kicked some ass for me. He was.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, he was doing like just decimating because he has that like the asteroid, the fire spell, and he has so much SP that you could just spam that attack, and it did some fairly good damage up until the final boss area. The penultimate boss kind of thing.
Right.
And he really kind of sucked.
At that point,
he showed his true colors then. they were not so good.
That's too bad.
So, but I had some. He was pretty good for me up until that point. So I'd probably sit him right there with Leon at a 5.56 kind of thing.
Okay, I only used him because he was the 3rd kingdom I got. So I got him very early on, and he was really good at the start. And then I was a little concerned about Leon's kingdom coming down, so I actually had him sort of positioned to be my main general if he did come and attack. And it just never happened, so he ended up just sitting there for a big portion of the game. So he kind of fell by the wayside pretty quick. I didn't have a problem with him, though. When I used him, I thought he was pretty decent. He's got some pretty good spells. And the mages are okay. They're not horrible. Not as bad as you might think. You might think that mages would be really garbage in this game. They're not that bad.
They do some pretty good work on the dragons, surprisingly.
Yeah, depends. I think that's a crapshoot, though. The dragons are you just get lucky or not, seems like with them, right? Except for Samurai, who just absolutely crushed them. Pretty much everyone else has a pretty hard time with the dragons.
Right.
So. He's okay. I think his design's weird. He's kind of wearing like a weird skirt type thing, but I like the sort of weird floaty, I don't even know what to call it, like the garb that's around him.
Yeah.
It looks like he's using his magic to float it around him. I think that looks kind of neat, but again, it sort of goes with the big weird shoulder pad thing. But anyways, the last one we will finish off with is the Tristan Empire, and that is Junon. So the final general.
Yeah, the Dark Knight.
Yes, the Dark Knight. There's always got to be a Dark Knight. Always. Sort of the flip side to, I guess, I presume they were probably using this as the flip side to Rem.
I think Goldark is kind of a...
I think Goldark is too, but I think Junon was sort of supposed to be like that. This is the flip side of Ren if you want to play as the sort of evil kingdom. Oh. And they're not even that evil, right? But I think just on, if you look at it, you're thinking, oh, this is the Black Knight.
Right, yeah.
Probably evil. Black, therefore, obviously means, evil thing brewing, so.
And they're from the land up north, kind of thing.
Yeah, the ice part of the continent there.
Junon actually rocked pretty well in the fights, that character.
Pretty badass.
Yeah, so it was kind of, outside of how good McCall is with dragons, I was kind of like, damn, I should have went with this one. But
the harpies are amazing, especially at the the start of the game. They're really good.
Yeah, so, oh well, but...
Except for archers.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But they can fight dragons decently, for the most part.
Decently. They can kind of hold.
But, design's all right.
Design's, it's not anything to kind of write home about. It's kind of...
Well, which is the case with most of these designs, but, right? They're not bad designs. They're just sort of the time, this is what you kind of would expect.
It kind of, to me, it reminds me of the later Fire Emblem game that came out on the GameCube and Wii. It looked like the Burger King or the Black Knight. So,
luckily, Martin Lawrence doesn't end up being the Black Knight in this.
If only that would have been. Oh man, that would have been.
Wearing his Philadelphia Eagles. Was it Philadelphia Eagles?
I think. I'm not quite sure.
I unfortunately have seen that movie, but not recently.
Oh man, but yeah.
Yeah.
That, I don't know. Do you know? I would say probably gets around that 8 region for me. I would say.
Nice. I'll give it about 8.5. I found very useful character.
Yeah.
Even up to the very end of the game.
That's true.
So yeah, cool general.
So,
all right, well, that's the 10 Degrees of Taylor. Took a little time, but that's what you expect with that many generals to go through.
Yeah.
So, or rulers. I guess they're rulers. So those are their kingdoms. Any other final words that you want to sort of throw out?
I beat Dragon Force. That's it. I don't know. I'm a bit of a downer on this game. I liked it up to a point, and then it just dragged on and on and on and on and on and on, and it just got to the point where I was really just fed up with the game. So, right. I will not be revisiting it anytime soon.
I think this is a game that I've already spoken at length with my sort of emotional journey with it, but I think that it might be something within 5, 6, 10 years' time. I might want to try it again and try a different kingdom, but I do not plan on playing this game right away again. I think it was just too much of a, not really a chore, but there were definitely times where I just couldn't deal with it. I actually had to stop playing it for about 2 weeks near the end of the game. After that UFO deal, I was pretty mad. I was just about ready to quit the game because I thought that was game breaking to me in a lot of ways. I just thought it was so out of place. It doesn't match any of the things that are going on in this universe. And to just drop that in there like that made me really upset. So I just about stopped. But when I came back to it after 2 weeks, I was still mad about that, but I was able to sort of just get over it and ignore that and sort of enjoy just finishing off the game, the last little bits of it, and just being like, okay, yeah, I beat Dragon Force, same as you. And I don't know if I can really recommend it. I think especially someone in North America, or I don't know if this came out in Europe, to be honest, but I would recommend you don't buy this game. To be completely honest, it is not worth an $80 or $90 or $100 price tag. It is not worth that.
I spent $5 on it.
It is usually 500 yen or less.
Yeah.
So if you want to try this game, I would recommend going through the trouble of just reading an FAQ, getting the Japanese version for $5 and playing it like that. I would not recommend paying all that money for it. Personally, also because I'm not a big fan of working designs translations. I've always sort of respected the fact that they went to the trouble to bring out some nice games in North America. I really like them for that, but I don't really like their translation processes. I just don't find their humor funny. It's incredibly dated. There's jokes in here from like old Saturday Night Live clips and skits from the 90s that I'm just like, that's not funny. It's really not. So just silly stuff like that that make the game feel even more dated, that just don't help the production value of it at all. But, and I mean, even as I watched the credits, I was like, okay, whatever, credits. When you get a thank you to Mountain Dew in the credits, something is wrong. There was a special thanks to Mountain Dew in the credits. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's because they had some sort of advertisement for it. It's because they got pissed drunk on Mountain Dew every night. I don't know. But to say special thanks to Mountain Dew is pretty ridiculous to me. I am not making that up. I'm not making that up.
Oh, goodness.
So I would not recommend this game to someone who sees the price and is like, yeah, I'm going to buy it. No, I say if you want to really try it, buy the Japanese version. It'll play on your system, no problem if you have what's the card I'm thinking of? Oh, it's escaping me. The Action Replay card. Sorry. If you have the Action Replay card or if you've already got a modded system or you have a Japanese system, go for the $5, 500 yen copy, try it out, and be done with it.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So that would be my suggestion to anyone who wants to play it. Again, not a bad game. Certainly not worth that price tag, though.
So yeah, that is Dragon Force.
Yes, it is. You got any final things to say there? Besides beating Dragon Force?
Not really. I think you nailed it there with that kind of you said my sentiments on the game right there.
All right, so. Fair enough. All right, well, we hope you enjoyed our little discussion of Dragon Force, and we would love to hear your comments. If you really enjoy the game and disagree with some of the things we have to say, please bring them up. Or if you haven't played the game, hopefully we can have brought a little bit of insight to it. And we hope that you look forward to whatever we have in store next episode of the Portable series. So, until then, I am Sushi B.
And I'm Taylor.
We hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time.